Confidence without substance is a weapon of mass delusion. It fools people faster than truth ever could. It walks into a room before facts do. It speaks louder than reason, drowns out logic, and dominates spaces where truth doesn't even get a chance to speak. You want to know why? Because most people aren't looking for what's real. They're looking for what feels real. And nothing feels more real than someone who believes their own lie. Confidence hijacks the brain. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't wait for data, proof, or validation. It moves first, talks loudest, and makes you believe it's the answer before the question is even asked. And that's the trap. Because when someone walks with unshakable belief, no matter how hollow they are on the inside, people follow. Not because they're right, but because they radiate certainty in a world full of doubt. That kind of power is dangerous. You've seen it. People who know nothing, never worked, never sacrificed, never earned anything, but they show up like kings. They speak with a tone that commands attention. They dress the part. They sell the illusion. And you, sitting there with your honesty, your facts, your late nights and early mornings, get overlooked. Not because you're wrong, but because you don't scream your truth with the same volume they scream their fiction. This is the battlefield. It's not between right and wrong. It's between the loud and the quiet, the bold and the reserved, the delusional and the accurate, and the delusional win more often than you want to admit. Because people don't follow the truth. They follow the person who acts like they have it. Confidence without work is hollow, but it's still effective. It still manipulates. It still gets the job, gets the followers, wins the election, closes the deal. Meanwhile, the one who spent years perfecting their craft waits in silence, hoping the world will recognize real effort. But the world doesn't reward quiet truth. It rewards loud dominance. It rewards the mask, not the man behind it. You think merit speaks for itself. It doesn't, not anymore. People don't check under the hood. They don't ask if your engine runs. They just want to know how shiny the car looks. They don't ask how many miles you've walked. They just want to see if you strut like you've been somewhere. And confidence, real or fake, sells the story better than any truth can. That's why the most dangerous person in the room is rarely the smartest or the most honest. It's the one who believes in their power, even if they haven't earned it. Because they'll push, speak, dominate, and convince the world they belong. And they'll win, not because they were the best, but because they acted like they were. And the worst part, the world lets them. Machiavelli didn't write fairy tales. He didn't care about how the world should work. He wrote about how it does. He warned that power doesn't bow to truth. It doesn't kneel to honesty or virtue. Power moves for perception. It respects strength, certainty, and the illusion of control. You can scream the truth until your lungs give out. But if someone else walks in with presence and unshakable confidence, they'll own the room. That's the game. People like to think the world values honesty. They lie to themselves, saying truth rises on its own. But Machiavelli saw through that fantasy. He watched kings fall not because they were wrong, but because they were too soft, too transparent, too trusting. And he watched tyrants rise, not because they were right, but because they understood how to appear right. He understood that image often matters more than reality. That's the dirty law most people don't want to face. You could be a genius in the shadows, know every right answer, have the cleanest motives, and still be ignored. Because someone else, with less knowledge but more audacity, will step up and steal the spotlight. And they'll win, not because they're better, but because they appear more certain. That's what Machiavelli was warning us about. That appearance can overpower substance. That in the real world, people believe what they see, not what actually is. Confidence is the sword, and truth is the whisper behind it. The world doesn't follow whispers. It follows the blade that's held high, even if it's rusted and dull. The person who walks into the room with fire in their eyes and a voice full of conviction will always outshine the quiet one holding the truth in their back pocket. That's not justice, That's reality. Machiavelli wasn't telling you to become a liar. He was telling you that if you're honest, you better be twice as strong, because the liar who looks powerful will beat the honest man who looks unsure. Every time, he knew leaders don't survive by being liked. They survive by being feared, respected, or followed without question. And that doesn't come from truth. That comes from performance, from understanding how people perceive power. We live in a world where perception is weaponized, where people would rather feel safe than be safe. They'd rather hear something confident and wrong than something truthful and uncertain. That's the battlefield you're walking into every day. It's not about proving you're right. It's about commanding presence, because without that, your truth is just noise in the wind. You can be the best at what you do, but if someone less skilled shows up looking like they own everything, they'll take what you've earned. Because people aren't wired to choose the truth, they're wired to choose the strongest looking leader in the room. That's what Machiavelli understood. That's what most people still don't. The world doesn't care if you're right. It doesn't hand out rewards to the most truthful. It doesn't bend for people who know the facts but don't know how to make the ground shake when they speak. The world reacts to strength. It moves for force. It responds to presence. You could have every answer, every statistic, every moral high ground. But if you walk like you're unsure, if your voice shakes when you talk, you're already invisible. People aren't listening for truth. They're looking for signals, body language, eye contact, tone. Do you look like someone who's been through fire and came out harder? Or do you look like someone waiting for permission to speak? Because that one difference decides everything. When you walk into a room, you either command it or you don't. There's no middle ground. There's no in-between. And if you think the truth will speak for itself, you haven't been paying attention. The guy who speaks with power, even if he's wrong, will lead. The guy who hesitates, even if he's right, will follow. That's the brutal reality most people choke on. They think being right gives them leverage. It doesn't. This world is a storm, and storms don't care about correctness. They care about who's willing to stand in the middle of it, unflinching, screaming louder than the wind. You want to be heard. Don't just bring truth. Bring fire. Bring weight. Bring presence that makes people shut up when you speak. The quiet, calculated person hoping to get noticed will be stepped over by the one who demands to be seen. This isn't about ego. It's about understanding how power works. Power doesn't wait for you to prove yourself. It doesn't read resumes or check credentials. It looks you in the eye, scans your energy, and decides whether you're a threat or a background character. You ever watch someone take the lead in a room without saying anything? That's not luck. That's not magic. That's trained energy. That's years of pain, grind, repetition, failure, and pushing through when no one believed in them. That's the kind of strength people feel before a word is even spoken. And when they do speak, even if it's dead wrong, it sounds like gospel, because the world believes people who believe in themselves. You could spend your life gathering truth, studying, learning, staying humble, doing everything right, and still get passed over by someone with less skill but more presence. That's not a flaw in the system. That is the system. The strongest voice leads, not the most accurate one. And if your voice doesn't carry weight, your truth won't carry far. It's not enough to know. You've got to become the kind of person the world listens to without needing to be convinced. Your weakness hides behind the mask of being honest. That's what you tell yourself when you don't want to go harder, when you're scared to show up louder, when you're hoping the world will give you credit just for telling the truth. You think saying, "I'm just being real," gives you a pass for being passive. You think vulnerability earns you respect on its own, but truth without force is just noise. It's soft, it gets drowned out, it gets crushed under the weight of people who don't care about facts. They care about who's willing to bleed for what they believe. You've been taught that honesty is a virtue, and sure it is, but it's not a weapon on its own, not in this world. You can be the most honest person alive and still get walked over every single day if you don't combine it with aggression, with fire, with power. You can be authentic and still be weak. You can be truthful and still be invisible. Truth means nothing if you don't know how to carry it like a weapon. That's what people don't get. They think truth does the work for them. It doesn't, you do. People hide behind honesty to avoid pressure. They say, I'm just not a loud person, or I don't want to be fake. No one's asking you to be fake. They're asking you to be undeniable. And right now, most people's truth isn't undeniable. It's soft, it's uncertain, it's hoping to be liked. But the truth doesn't need to be liked. It needs to dominate. It needs to hold weight. And if you're not building the kind of strength that gives your words power, then don't be surprised when people ignore your so-called honesty. You can walk around telling yourself you're better than the loud ones, the confident ones, the ones who take up space. But let me ask you something. Are you winning? Are you being heard? Are you getting what you came for? Or are you just hoping someone sees your goodness and rewards it? That's not how it works. This world doesn't hand out prizes for potential. It hands out space to the ones who fight for it. The ones who don't just speak truth. They back it with effort, with presence, with a body and mind forged through suffering and repetition. You want your truth to matter, then you need to build a version of yourself that people can't ignore. That doesn't come from hoping, that comes from war, every day with yourself, with your limits, with the part of you that wants to sit back and let the world figure it out for you. It won't. No one's coming to carry your message for you. You have to build the lungs to scream it, the legs to stand on it, and the mind to never doubt it even when the world tells you to shut up. Train until your confidence is the truth. That's the only way to make sure no one can take it from you. You can fake it all you want. Posture, talk big, act like you belong. But deep down, you know what you've earned and what you haven't. The mirror doesn't lie. Your reflection knows if you've been putting in the work or just playing dress up. That's why real confidence can't be shaken, because it's built on miles, reps, scars, and repetition. It's built on showing up when no one's watching, doing the work when your body's screaming to quit, and staying locked in when every distraction is begging for your attention. People are walking around with borrowed confidence. They talk loud because they're trying to drown out their own doubt. They try to control rooms because they can't control themselves. But the ones who have suffered, the ones who have been broken and rebuilt, those are the people who walk in quiet and still dominate the room, not because they need attention, but because their presence can't be ignored. They've earned it in the dark. They've built it when no one believed in them. They've taken the truth of who they are and welded it to their bones through discipline and grind. When your confidence is real, it doesn't have to shout. It doesn't need validation. It doesn't flinch when challenged because it's been tested 1,000 times already. When someone questions you, you don't panic. You remember the hours, the sweat, the pain. You remember the mornings you got up when everything hurt. The nights you stayed up studying, running, building, training, and you smile, not because it was easy, but because you made it through what would break most people. That's the kind of confidence that doesn't crumble when things go sideways. That's the kind of confidence that doesn't rely on motivation or applause. It runs deep. It's earned through suffering. It's earned through showing up every day and giving more than what's comfortable. It's built in silence. And when it speaks, it doesn't need to prove anything. It just is. That's the truth you should be chasing. Not facts, not theories, not opinions, but the truth of who you've become because of the work you've done. You want to walk into a room and not care who's watching. Train for it. You want to speak and have people listen without question. Bleed for it. You want the kind of presence that stops people in their tracks. Then stop looking for shortcuts and start building your body, your mind, your spirit, brick by brick. Earn the right to be confident. Earn the right to speak without fear. Earn the truth through action, not words. Confidence isn't something you get. It's something you become through the kind of work most people will never do. Because when you've done the work, when you've lived through the pain, when you've survived the grind, your confidence becomes unshakable, so now you understand the game. Truth is not the currency of this world. Power is. And power doesn't come from just knowing what's right. It comes from being someone who can carry the weight of truth with force, with presence, with fire. Confidence without substance is dangerous, but truth without strength is invisible, and most of you are walking around invisible, hoping honesty alone will buy you respect. It won't. This world doesn't hand crowns to the most correct. It hands them to the ones who show up like kings, whether they've earned it or not. So what do? You train, you suffer, you build, you go so deep into the work that your presence speaks before your mouth does. You become the person who doesn't just speak truth, you embody it. You don't just say you're ready, you prove it every damn day. That's the warning, that's the lesson. Machiavelli didn't tell you to lie, he told you to understand the battlefield. And if you want to win, you don't just need to be right, you need to be undeniable. You want truth to matter, then become so strong that your truth can't be ignored.